Hey, it's Scott Petrak with another episode of the Brown Zone Coverage Podcast. The offseason program started Tuesday for the Browns, and the draft begins Thursday night. So there's plenty to talk about and no time to waste. Joining me as usual is Dave Chudowsky of the WKYC Morning News. You ready for the draft, Chud?
I am, Scott. Let's go. I mean, how much do we need to hear about it anymore? I think that we've come to the point, right, where we just want to see what happens. Although I could see where fans do enjoy the build up to it, but I think at this point now, we're just ready to see what happens, right?
No doubt. We've been through all the scenarios: quarterback, Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter, trade down, trade up. It's time to see what Andrew Berry does. And there's a lot of pressure on Andrew Berry. It's a huge draft for him. Owner Jimmy Haslam said as much at the owners' meetings and at the league meetings. This is a big draft. They're finally back in the first round after 3 years without a first-round pick. They have 10 total picks, 5 within the top 104. So this is a big weekend for the Browns coming up.
Well, you're right. I got to refresh my memory on how to cover the first round and handle that tomorrow morning because it has been a while. I mean, it's crazy to think that an NFL team can go that long without a pick in the first round, but here we are. So, what would you say comes out of the news we heard this week? Do you take anything out of that report that the Browns are fielding calls for the second pick, or is that just the no duh? Of course they are.
I think it's probably somewhere in between, Chud, that it goes without saying that Andrew Berry, and he has said it, so maybe it doesn't go without saying, that he's open to doing whatever improves the team, whether it's trade up, stay there, trade for a veteran, trade down. I mean, he told us that a week ago. The fact that they're fielding calls, I don't think is out of the ordinary whatsoever. Now, it's Tennessee. It took me 3 tries. Tennessee Titans at number 1 are not fielding calls because they decided they're going to draft Cam Ward. They may have fielded calls early in the process, but they were asking a ton. Nobody's willing to give that up. They have settled on the pick at number 1. Everybody knows it's going to be Cam Ward. The Browns are in a different spot. If they could get a significant haul to move out of number 2, that aligns with the organizational philosophy. More picks, the better. We know they have a ton of needs on the roster. So I think the report isn't anything to be blown out of proportion, but I do think it's worth noting and remembering that Andrew Berry and Paul DePodesta and company do like to trade down. That's their default. So I could see them moving down, but I will also say it would take, in my opinion, a significant trade offer for them to move back off a player like, let's assume it's Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter that the Browns would take at number 2 if they sit there. It would take a big offer for them to give up on those 2 guys. Let's say it's even New England at number 4. Well, if you drop to New England at number 4, so New England could get Travis Hunter, let's say at number 2, and then Carter goes 3 to the Giants, you've missed on who most people think are the best 2 players in the draft. So in order to give that up, give up the chance to take who you think could be a generational player or whatever, it has to be more than a 3rd-round pick, right? Even though it's only 2 spots, I think it would have to be at the least a high 2nd-round pick, and I just don't think anybody's going to give that up to move up to number 2 to draft Travis Hunter because he doesn't play quarterback. That's where the big draft moves come from, is when a team goes and gets a quarterback. And I don't think, as good as Travis Hunter can be and might be, and I think he will be, I don't think anybody's given up a 1st-round pick or even a high 2nd-round pick to move up to draft him.
That's what I was going to ask. What if someone did offer a 1st-round pick next year, swapping 1st-round picks this year and a 2nd or 3rd somewhere else?
I think the Browns would do that, Judd. I really do. Yeah, just because the 1st-round picks are so valuable. Then you take into consideration the Browns might still need to get a quarterback next year. So how do you maneuver inside the draft? That 2nd 1st-round pick is vital when you need a quarterback to be able to try to get up in the 1st round if that's what the Browns would need to do. So I think a 1st-round pick next year, especially from a team in the top 10 this year, then you would hope or think or expect it to be another high 1st-round pick next year. So I think then the Browns would probably move down let's say within the top 10, top 12, because I just think that first round pick is so valuable.
All right, where do we stand here? Taping this on Wednesday afternoon. Last week, we both said Travis Hunter. Are you changing your mind, or are you sticking with that?
I am not. I'm sticking with Travis Hunter. And we actually did a little thing for WKYC. They had some of the beat writers predict who they thought the Browns would take at number 2. So I'm locked in at Travis Hunter. I just think, first of all, I don't think they will trade the pick because I don't think they'll get a good enough offer. I think he's the best receiver in the draft. I think he's the best cornerback in the draft. I think he's going to have an impact on both sides of the ball. And if there's not a quarterback you love at number 2, I think he's the choice.
Okay, there's another report that I saw that the Browns are considering trying to trade back into the first round later on, deeper into the first round.
Right. Yeah, I mean, any team that needs a quarterback, and well, at least in this draft, it sets up with teams that need a quarterback and don't, let's say, value one high enough to take a 2 or 3 like the Giants, or even 9 like New Orleans. Those are the teams that feel most likely to try to trade back into the bottom of the first round for 2 reasons. You want to get ahead of those teams. Like the Giants are picking at 34, the Browns at 33. So I think there could be a little bit of a fight there to see who can get ahead of the other team to take the quarterback they want. Now that's assuming that these teams value whoever that quarterback would be, or it could be multiple, but the Jackson Darts, the Jalen Milrows, let's say Shedeur Sanders happens to fall that far, Tyler Shuck. I think those are the 4 quarterbacks that teams might maneuver for. And then the other benefit is you get that 5th-year option on the rookie contract for a first-round draft pick. Now, Andrew Berry said they don't value that a ton, but there is some benefit to that. So it'll be interesting, Chud, to see. Let's assume the Browns don't take a quarterback at number 2. So would they go up from 33? I mean, they're starting the second round. They have the first pick of the second round, which is really valuable in itself. I think the last 3 years that pick has been traded. So that's a valuable pick. But do they try to jump from 33 to 24 or even to 20 to get ahead of the Steelers? I think that's certainly on the table. I think the Giants at 34 are considering the same thing, and maybe even the Saints to jump back in to that first round. I understand how important quarterback is. So that's why you would make that move, is because you value quarterback and you got to go get that guy. I also think in this draft where maybe there's not more than one elite quarterback and there's questions about the rest of them. I like them, but there's questions about a lot of these quarterbacks. Is that the right time to make a move? Do you have to give up, do you have to give up a second round pick next year in order to move up? I don't think it's worth it. Is it one of your 2 third-round picks this year? Maybe that's worth it, but I also know the Browns have a ton of needs. And if they stay at 33, I think, let's say they stay at 33 and want to take a quarterback at 33. I think one of those, that second tier, Dart, Murrow, or Shuck, let's assume Sanders is gone. I think one of those guys will be there at 33. So I don't expect the Browns to move up, but it's certainly a possibility. And it would make for, a busy night, Thursday night, if, okay, they take a guy at number 2, and then all of a sudden 2.5 hours later, they're on the clock again taking a quarterback. That would add a lot of excitement.
Oh my gosh. Could you imagine if they trade back in and get Shedeur and
Oh my God. Yeah. I mean, I think fans are split on Shedeur. I know they are at number 2. I think Shedeur later in the first round would go over well with most fans. I think that would be a huge success because I like Shedeur Sanders. I would have no problem with the Browns taking him at number 2. I no longer expect them to do that. I've kind of shifted where even I would probably take Travis Hunter, but I think Sanders can be a successful quarterback in this league. And if you got both those guys, that both teammates from Colorado, Browns would be the talk of the draft. It would just be what would they have to give up? And maybe it doesn't matter if you get the best player in the draft or you think the best player in Travis Hunter, and then you get a quarterback you love. Maybe it doesn't matter that you have to give up, a 3rd-round pick or a 2nd-round pick next year.
Yeah, and who knows? I mean, Shador could go three to the Giants, or at any point where it wouldn't even be a question to trade up, unless maybe there was another quarterback they wanted to get there.
Right, right. And we don't know how the Browns draft board is. You read all these insiders and you hear all these um, coaches and executives around the league. I have no doubt that there's teams in the league that would have Jackson Dart ahead of Shadur Sanders. And I think there's teams that have Tyler Shuck ahead of Shadur Sanders on their draft board. So I think it'd be a stunner if a team traded up and Sanders wasn't the second quarterback taken. But I certainly think that is a possibility.
All right, so I don't want the entire thing, but just give me your quick. I know you put your mock out.
Yeah.
Just obviously Travis Hunter. Then, what do you have them doing then in the second round? Do they trade or do they pick there?
Yeah, I didn't forecast any trades, but I don't think they will trade out of 33. I think they sit at 33. I went with Jalen Milroe, the Alabama quarterback, and I did that because his potential is through the roof. And I wrote about him. I want to say I posted the story on Tuesday. I talked to his offensive coordinator, quarterbacks coach at Bama, and he's probably got the strongest arm in the draft. He's certainly the best running quarterback in the draft. He runs a 4.4 40, strong, breaks tackles, and he's super smart. He won the academic Heisman. Now, he's not a polished passer. His accuracy needs work. Reading defenses needs work, but there's a high ceiling on Jalen Milroe. And I think at 33, I think it's okay to take a chance when you need a long-term answer at quarterback. You have Kenny Pickett, you have Joe Flacco, so there's not a need to play him right away. And I think Milroe would probably be better served by sitting at least at the start of 2025. So I'd be okay with that. I also think there's a chance that so that's why I went with I don't have to be okay with it. I think there's a strong possibility the Browns take him at 33. For me, it's between him and Tyler Shuck. I want Milroe because the Browns have been complimentary when they talk about him and his upside. And they had Tommy Rees, who was Milroe's coordinator at Alabama in 2023. There's a lot of dots you can connect. I also think there's a chance that the Browns just wait, take a different position at 33, maybe a left tackle, maybe a pass rusher, even a tight end, and think that the quarterback that they want or one of the quarterbacks that they can live with or would be happy with is still there at 67. I think there's a possibility. This quarterback class and draft is so weird, interesting, Chud, because you could have Shadur Sanders go with 3, right? I mean, even 2, but let's say 3. You could have him go at 9. You could have him fall to 21. You could have Jackson Dart go in the mid-20s. You could have a team trade up. The Giants could trade up to take a quarterback. Or you could have Cam Ward go 1, Sanders go 21 to Pittsburgh, nobody take another quarterback in the first round, the Giants take a guy at 34, and the Browns get Milroe or Shuck at 67. I just think there's such a large variance, and maybe because teams don't know how it's going to play out, that would lead them to reach a little bit or to take a guy earlier than they might need to, just in fear that another team will take him, which is why I wound up going with Milroe at 33.
Okay. We can break down the deeper into the draft because we'll talk on Friday to break down the selection in the first round.
Yep.
But just overall, just quickly, Scott, just for fans, just to give them a quick recap, what are the needs? What do the Browns need overall in this draft?
Yeah, I would say the majority of the needs are on the offensive side of the ball, Chud, and I would start with playmaker. Well, I'd start with quarterback because that's the biggest need until you have that long-term answer. But playmakers, they need a starting running back. They need at least one receiver to pair with Jerry Jeudy and Cedric Tillman. I think they need a number 2 tight end to join David Njoku, who's in the last year of his contract. So we covered every possible position that is a playmaker on offense. Could they use a left tackle? Certainly. Could they get younger interior on the offensive line? Yes. Batonio, Teller, and Ethan Posick are all in the last year of their contracts in 30 plus. On defense, I would say defensive line would be the priority. I think D tackle is a little higher priority than DN, but you could use one at either spot. And then the safety. I'm not sure they have their second starting safety on the roster right now, John. So they have 10 picks. They have those high ones, but all the positions I listed, they're not going to be able to address all of those, and certainly not going to be able to address all those high enough where you would even be hopeful that a rookie could come in and start in all those positions.
All right, so today you were in Berea and got to speak with Stefanski and some players. Just break down some of the highlights of today.
Yeah, so it was good to talk to Joe Flacco back in the building. And, he talked about he hasn't been promised anything, that Kevin Stefanski told him that he has no preconceived notion about who the starting quarterback is going to be, whether it's Flacco, Kenny Pickett, or one of the rookies, or a rookie that they draft, or maybe they draft multiple rookies. So it's going to be, it feels like it's going to be an open competition. That's fine with Flacco. Kevin Stefanski talked about liking the guys that he has right now. I'm sure he'll like whatever draft pick they add. And, competition brings out the best in everybody. It's good to have Flacco, a guy who knows the offense, knows guys in the building. Flacco talked about how nice that 2023, the run at the end of that season was, and how he liked the city and he liked guys in the locker room, and he has a lot of good vibes for it. But what was interesting, we would always mention Joe Flacco as a possibility for the Browns, knowing they were going to add a veteran or two this offseason. But he said he went to play golf and he didn't have his phone with him, and he did not have the Browns on his radar. Gets back like 10 hours later, looks at his phone. It's like, oh, here we go. The Browns are a possibility. And then wound up, getting a deal done. So it surprised him a little bit that he wound up back here.
What about Kevin Stefanski? Anything important from him today?
Yeah, you know what? I'm just glancing at my notes. He talked about the draft. I did think this was interesting about the draft, Judd, is we focus. I think there's a tendency to focus so much on negatives, right? This player's got this weakness. This player can't do that. And I asked him, how do you judge it between focusing on the strengths and the weaknesses? And he said, he likes to focus on the strengths because as a coach, you feel like you can maximize those and minimize the weaknesses. So I think it's important not to get caught up in, okay, a guy might not be able to do this right now. That doesn't mean he won't be able to do that. And even if he can't, if he does, he said they look for, I'm going to look it up, see what that word was, but it's like defining traits or dominant traits. And they find those because they feel like that can be a separator for a player. And if a guy has that trait or those couple or few traits, dominant traits is the word to use, then you can really build something, whether it's quarterback or any other position.
All right, Scott, here we go. Big night, obviously tomorrow night, big time in the NFL, but you also got the Cavs tonight, game 2 with a 1-0 lead over the Heat. The Guardians didn't get the sweep, but they took 2 out of 3 against the hated Yankees. So clearly a busy time in Cleveland sports. Always love this time of the year.
Yeah, it's a really good time. It really is, Judd. Cavs, I mean, we're taping this Wednesday night, or Wednesday afternoon, so hopefully the Cavs get that game 2 win and go down to Miami up 2-0. Yeah, it's an exciting time, and this draft's going to be interesting, Chud. The Browns have a chance to really do a lot to improve this roster, and it needs a lot of improvement, but they have that chance and also the opportunity to create a lot of excitement, and I think that's important, and we'll see. We'll see how they handle it. Do they make more than those 5 picks early? Do they sit at 2? Do they move back up? There's a lot of unanswered questions.
All right. So that's like the name of a rock group or a song, Unanswered Questions.
That's great. That's great. Oh, hey, Chud, I did want to mention one other thing. JOK, the linebacker, missed the end of last year with that neck injury. He was in the building for the start of the offseason program. So it was good to see him because we hadn't seen him I didn't see him in person, but I saw him on video that the Browns posted. The players said it was good to be around him. We don't have any further update on that, whether or not he's going to be able to play this year. But obviously it's a good sign. And it's good for him to be back in there.
All right, we'll talk again on Friday.
Yeah, well, certainly a lot to break down and a lot to look forward to, Chud. So I appreciate it, and we'll talk Friday, Chud. Thanks, everybody, for listening. This has been another episode of the Zone Coverage Podcast, and you can read all my work at brownzone.com. Thanks.